Hey everybody, welcome back to My Horror. It's Andrew Tibbs, and let's go ahead and get started. Look at the sign over there. I don't have my little sound machine that makes all the screaming noises, so you're gonna have to improvise. So on the count of three, go with me. 1, 2, 3. Ah! Alright, there you go. Now the movie I want to talk to you guys about is a movie that was recommended to me by a friend of mine when I used to live in San Francisco. Well, she's actually a friend of my mother's, but she's also a friend of mine too. A friend of my mom is a friend of me. But she really likes horror films. I didn't realize this until now, so I could have had some good education from her from beforehand. But she likes horror films, especially the Hammer kind. You know, House that Dripped with Blood, Christopher Lee as Dracula, good stuff. But her favorite, which is the movie I went ahead and watched today, well, actually it took me like 2 weeks to watch because it's very British. But it's Quatermass and the Pit. Now, I have to give her a lot of thanks because she sent this to me in the mail because she mentioned the title and she's like, go watch that movie. And I for the life of me, could not find it. And so she sent me this in the mail. It not only has that, but it has the two movies that came before it. The Quatermass Experiment and then Quatermass 2. Haven't watched those yet. She told me to watch this one first, and so I honored her wishes. And I did. Very good. It's also titled 5 Million Years to Earth, I think? 5 Million Years to Earth. Yeah. And it has Roy Ward Clark, I think Roger Ward Clark, something like that. I can't remember who directed it. But the movie, I'll go ahead and explain it to you. And oh yeah, by the way, I'm on a horse. I didn't want to bring a chair all the way over here because the way my life's been going, I'm sick and tired of moving crap, and so I'm on Seabiscuit today. So that's what you get. But the movie, it begins with a bunch of workers who are trying to expand the Underground Railroad. Not Underground Railroad, gosh. The Underground that's in London. It's kind of like their version of the subway. And so they're in a section of it called Hobbs End, and they're expanding on it. They're trying to make it bigger. In the process, some of the workers come across some skeletons that are like from prehistoric man from like 5 million years ago. Okay, and it's obviously this gets the attention of one of the paleontologists. His name is Roni, and his assistant Barbara. Like they come across these remains and they want to investigate them. Now, meanwhile, Mr. Quatermass, our main man, he is in the process of working with the military and trying to initiate this plan to colonize the moon. And in his sadness, the army has decided to veto that and take reins of it and have Quatermass out of it completely. But the army has been asked to come down and investigate these remains because not only did they find prehistoric man skeletons, but they found a massive metallic container right next to it. And so Quatermass, in his curiosity, he came down to investigate this container as well. And let me see what happened next. And he sees it, and he is convinced, I can't remember the specific part that leads him to this, but he's convinced that it's of alien origin, like this entire container that they're looking at. And when he becomes like best friends with Barbara, so the paleontologist assistant, and she tells him that the place that these prehistoric remains are being found is, you know, it's called Hobbs End, right? And so Hob is another name for the devil. You can fact check that if you want. I have no idea, but in the context of the movie, it makes sense. And so she tells him, like, you know, for centuries, that location of the underground has been subject to all sorts of paranormal activity and, you know, like poltergeists and stuff like that. So it's a very scary area, all right? And later on in the movie, someone tries to drill the container, try to get inside and see what happens, and they come across these several dead alien-looking bodies. They look like massive cicadas, right? But they have like devil horns on them. Which was a surprise to me because if you know anything about Hammer, is they're really big fans of vampire movies. Christopher Lee, all that stuff. And if you look at the case for this, maybe this is just me, but you guys can tell me what you think. I mean, is there not some vampire-looking imagery there? And so it kind of threw me for a loop, shattered my universe. But the monsters are cool nonetheless. So they discover these, and then what happened next is later on that night, the guy who was doing the drilling, his name is Sladen. This is my favorite part. Everyone else is gone, but as he is leaving the underground, suddenly he starts becoming extremely disturbed. Stuff starts flying off the walls, chairs are flying up in the air, parts of like the tracks are coming off, and it reminds me of Suspiria, when the main character is trying to run out of the ballet company studio. It's crazy. And so he's running, he gets up out of the underground, and he's like running on the streets, and when he looks behind him, you don't see anything, but what he's perceiving is that there's a massive swarm of these insects that they found, the dead carcasses that I told you about. But these insects are all coming after him. And afterwards, when Quatermass and Barbara hear about this, Slotin had taken refuge with a priest, and so Quatermass and Barbara go and they want to talk to him. They want to find out what's going on. And when they do, God, it is so creepy because, of course, you can't see anything. I don't know if it was in the budget or whatever, but what Slotin was perceiving was this massive horde of the insects coming after him. And when he was talking about it, when he was telling Quatermass, his story it just gave me the chills. His eyes were wide, and this guy was clearly freaked out of his mind, okay? And so what happened next is, Quatermass wants to get to the bottom of this, and so he investigates by trying to do some psychodynamic therapy or whatever, but he comes to find out that these visions that the guy had about all the insects coming after him aren't necessarily visions, but they're memories that were put into his mind since the day he was born. They're race memories is what they call them. I think that's a thing, actually. So what happens next is there's a press conference that happens that, the army guy, he's not convinced that, this container is of alien origin. And by the way, I totally forgot to mention this. Remember when I said there were prehistoric men that were found next to the container? Well, how they concluded that this must be of alien origin is they found that there was remains of a prehistoric man inside the container as well, meaning it must be as old as they are. Okay? And so there's this press conference that gets held. The army guys wanting to, show everyone, look, we found this bomb from way back in the day. Let's have a press conference about it. And when that happens, crap hits the roof. The whole stuff I was talking about with the Suspiria, stuff flying off the walls, everyone freaking out. It was mass, I don't want to say hysteria, but it was just crazy stuff everywhere, right? And so, I forgot to mention, but before Quatermass had found out that, the aliens who had come to Earth, the reason why they were there is because they weren't surviving on Mars. Mars became inhabitable to them. And so they came down to Earth and tried to colonize, but they must have watched the movie Signs or something, because that clearly wasn't going to work either for some weird reason. So they believed, in their impending doom, that they were going ahead and colonize in a different way. They were going to find the prehistoric man and somehow influence their thoughts, their cognition, and make them smarter, basically. So it's the movie's explanation as to how man had become smart after all, is because, they invaded prehistoric man, gave him brains, and so that's how they were able to colonize Earth, is kind of influence the species already there. And so it was really, really cool. And fast forward to what I was saying, all the entire city around, all the area surrounding Hobbs End, things start exploding, fire hydrants go off, lots of fire, and what appears is this big, massive, I don't know if it's like an image. According to the movie, I think it's an actual Martian, but it appears directly above where Hobbs End is located. And it is scary. I know there was probably a budget issue there, but it reminded me that big Martian head that was floating above Hobbs End. It reminded me of what you would see in Carnival of Souls, or Insidious with all the crazy, creepy eyes just looking right at you. And I'm telling you what, it gave me chills, man. So maybe it was in the budget. Maybe it wasn't in the budget for them to have cool special effects, but that image of the Martian in the sky creeped me out. You know, Roni goes in, saves the day. He realizes that if he smashes it with a crane, it'll die. So he must have been inspired because it worked. And then after that comes the final scene, which is my favorite scene of the movie. Actually, not the favorite scene of the movie. Where Slaughton was being chased by the insects was my favorite scene. But here you see Quatermass and Barbara. You know, everything's sort of settled down. The Martian's been destroyed. And they're just sitting there. They're supposed to be kind of recovering from all the trauma that just happened. But Quatermass is just kind of doing this. You know, just not relaxing, but looking very restless and uncomfortable. Whereas Barbara's on the other side of the street in the same shot, right? Doing the exact same thing. And they look like... they're from high school and they're trying to flirt, and they both realize that neither of them have game. And so that's my second favorite part. I just wanted to just go ahead and show that to you guys, or explain it to you. That movie was a lot of fun. If you guys can get a hold of it, best of luck. Go ahead and watch it. If not, you can contact Michelle and she'll maybe send you a copy. Or not. I didn't ask her about this or not. So I wanted to explain that to you guys. Now, this wasn't a part of the original plan for the video, but my son has been huge into trying to do illustrations like that he's been watching on YouTube clips. And so I'm going to go ahead and show you some of those. You're going to have to forgive me because this is my basement, so it's not exactly the cleanest as a basement wouldn't be. So, alright, let me show you. Sorry, the lighting's getting weird. But my son decided that he wanted to draw and color Pennywise. I did not I did not force him to do this. This is just what he did for me. Pennywise. That's supposed to be Big Fat Ethel, even though it's a man. And that's Freddy Krueger. Oh, by the way, this one's Ash from The Evil Dead. And so, I just thought I'd show that to you. I thought it was a lot of fun. Thanks for tuning in, and see you guys whenever I see ya. Bye.